Recording. All right, so we're going to start by sharing a fun clip that Joey put together here of a 3-minute performance clip on how he one of his shows. So we'll get started and do that. Streets of Dublin.
And it's not like I dislike you, but I don't know if I love you. So I made a little phrase I hope will do. Since there's more than there was yesterday, but less than when tomorrow comes. For today, we both can say, There's no fault in loving, no call for shame. Everyone's heart does exactly the same. And once you believe that, you'll learn how to say, I love who I love, who I love. So just go and love.
Yeah, we loving it.
Oh my goodness, your voice is incredible.
Thank you.
Those are some awesome clips. I thought that was a fun way for us to kind of just get acclimated with the work that you're doing. I'm going to stop my screen sharing here. All right. Did I stop it?
I think so.
Okay. I don't know where you are, but
I don't know. I'm hiding.
I'll get you back there. But yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the acting world and yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I've always been performing for as long as I can remember. I think my first, if my aunt was on, she'd say my first role was the big bad wolf in some random opera version of Little Red Riding Hood at my elementary school. And then as I got a little bit older, all of my friends wanted to do the musicals in school. So that's what we would do. I mean, we didn't play sports. We did shows. 6th through 12th grade, I was just in shows. And then as you're a junior and a senior and you're looking for the next step, what you're going to do with the rest of your life, right? I was leaning toward being a teacher, and my choir director was like, "What are you doing? That's dumb. I mean, it's great, but no, you need to be on stage. Don't do that." And he actually introduced me to the music director at the university that I ended up going to, Ohio Northern University. And he called me one morning. He said, "Hey, the director wants to see you. Can you get to Church of the Savior in 5 minutes?" And I was like, "Do I have to look nice?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Give me 10 minutes and I'll be there." So I show up and he said, "All right, I need you to sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat." And I said, "Okay." Mind you, the entire college ensemble is standing on risers, having just rehearsed for their concert that evening. And they're all watching me
No pressure.
sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat for the director. And I was mortified. I was like, okay, go to town. Sang the heck out of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Just got to say, best rendition of it I ever gave in my life. And then I got an audition at that school. And then I was asked if I wanted to audition for the musical theater program as well. They had a voice program and a musical theater program. I auditioned for both. And then after my audition for the musical theater program, the head of the department said, "You need to make a decision. You can't do both. You need to pick one or the other." And I decided to do musical theater. I've always loved the acting aspect of performance. It's so fun to dive into these very obscure characters or villains or the funny sidekick, justifying all these people's actions. So I picked musical theater and graduated with my degree in musical theater in 2018.
Awesome. Well, one of the ways that we kind of became acquainted was through some of your TikToks. And,
Yeah.
After speaking with you a little bit more and learning about, your CMT journey, it was just really interesting that you were, wasn't that long ago where you didn't know what you had and you kind of had this weird family history and you thought you were just one of the clumsy kids. And now here you are kind of on this webinar with the CMT community, kind of sharing your story. Can you share a little bit about your family growing up? What did you know of CMT, and what point in your life were you like, I think I might have this?
Yeah, sure. Growing up, I like to think I was a pretty normal kid. There were no real symptoms until I was in college that kind of directed me in the direction of, I should probably get tested. My dad's side is the part of the family that has the gene for CMT. My grandfather for sure had it. That was my first interaction with an AFO, but I didn't know what it was. My brother and I would just help my grandfather put his shoes on because he was riddled with CMT by the time he died. And it was, there was this big plastic thing sticking out of his shoe. And my brother and I were like, "Oh, cool. Every shoe comes with that thing." I guess ours don't, but every other shoe does. Like I said, my dad has it. My aunt has it. And when I was younger, I think I had to have been anywhere between 10 and 12. We decided that we should just go get tested because it is hereditary. So we went to University Hospital, and you go to the neurology department and they're like, "All right, so I need you to not let me push your hands down." I'm like, "All right." "Oh, okay. Yeah, you're a strong boy. All right, cool. Don't let me pull them up. All right. Now do the same thing with your legs. Cool. Squeeze my hands. Cool." And they were like, "He's fine." And I was 12, And then when I got to college, I started noticing that I couldn't like stand on my tiptoes. That's one of the things you have to do in ballet class. You stand on releve to do a pirouette, and I just couldn't do it. And I remember my ballet teacher just getting so mad at me because she's like, "You have an amazing point," and I was like, "I just have high arches and no control over my foot whatsoever. So sorry." We would like help each other stretch out in the day, and one of my classmates would just like pull my feet down, and I mean, it was a straight point, and my ballet teacher stopped the class and said, "Look at that. You need to be able to use that." And I was like, "It's not like I'm not trying, Liz. I don't know what to do." Same thing with standing on releve. It was, you need to get higher on your releve. I said, "I feel like I'm way off the ground, and you're telling me I only have half an inch of clearance between my heel and the floor. There's nothing else I can do here. I'll go to the gym more, I guess, and work out my legs. Sure, let's do it." And then I graduated. I had I had 2 contracts back to back after I graduated. And the second one was actually the first clip in that reel. It was a show called Celtic Fire at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I was the lead singer for that show. And before COVID, what would happen is the show would end and we would all run to the back of the theater and do a meet and greet with all the guests as they're exiting. And I will never forget this interaction because it was probably the goofiest, most backwards thing to say to someone. This mother and son come up, and the son is probably in his late teens, early 20s, and he says, "Oh, Mom, this is the guy. You need to ask him your question." And she goes, "No, no, 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 no. I don't think that's appropriate." The son goes, "No, it's fine. He'll answer it. You'll answer it, won't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't care. Whatever. Ask the question." And she goes, "How long have you been an amputee?" And I said, "What?" And she goes, "No, no, it's okay. I'm a nurse at the VA hospital. I know an amputee when I see one, and it's really cool that you're performing with one leg." I said, I'm, and I apologized. I said, "I'm sorry to disappoint you. I have 2 legs. They're both real. Apparently, I'm just messed up." Then it happened on the last day of shows that year where I was injured. I had bruised bone in my knee and behind my kneecap because of some of the choreography that we did. And I sat out for one of the shows on the last day, and this couple who came to like every show that year goes, "Hey man, it's so good to see you back in the show. We thought you were down for the count." And I was like, "Nah, just an injury. I'm in for the rest of the day." He goes, "Yeah, we were wondering why you walk so funny. We thought you only had one leg." And I was like, "Is this just something that's going around? The word on the streets that the innkeeper guy only has one leg? Sweet." So then I got home in not May. I got home in September of that year, and I was like, I'm going to the doctor, going to the neurologist. I'm getting tested. We're gonna figure this out. And yeah, they looked at me and were immediately like, "You kind of have CMT, but we're gonna test you." And they do the tests, and then I got the diagnosis in December of 2019.
So you were genetically tested with 1A for
1B.
1B. Okay.
Yeah.
So you took the genetic test and you have
Yep.
1B. Okay. And what was that like? What was that initial feeling like when you had that confirmation?
Hard. It was hard. I mean, like, again, when the doctor looks at you and can tell you without testing you that you have the thing, you're like, Joel, don't say it. And then during the testing, when he calls in med students to watch the exam because it's new new to him, specifically during the EMG,
Yeah.
where they like shock you.
Mhm.
He was turning up the dial on the electrodes, and he was just like, seriously, nothing yet? Hold on. Hey, come here.
Check this guy out.
I was like, cool. So I'm going in your reports later today, huh? Sweet. I feel lucky now because, I mean, realistically, I'm still walking, I'm still performing, and that's amazing. But at the time, I was like, cool. So that's the end of my career. I wasted 4 years at university studying this thing that I thought I was going to do for a very long time. And I've been in the game for a year and now I can't do it anymore. Oh, I need to figure out the rest of my life now. What's the game plan? So it was scary to think that I was going to have to completely resort the rest of my life, starting again a year out of college. And there are days where it still feels like that, you know, like if I'm looking for auditions for shows coming up and some of them are like, has to dance, I'm like, cool, so I just can't do that job. I can't do that job. If I want to get a master's degree in musical theater, they're going to make me take dance classes, and I really can't, because I can't exactly take a tap class and leg braces, because you need to be able to move your ankle in tap class. And I like to think that I'm getting better at navigating how to proceed down this career path, because I love it. And I at the moment can't see myself doing anything else. But also wearing leg braces, having to disclose to my director that I'm going to have to change things that he might not want me to change, but that's just the name of the game with what I have. You know, it was a huge learning curve, and definitely initially took a huge toll on my confidence. But I'm here now, so I can't complain that much anymore. At the time, definitely good.
What's that reaction been like now that you're kind of in a better place with it, and when you do share it with your fellow actors or close friends and family, what's that reaction been like?
Interesting. So I've always been extremely open, just as a person. I've always been very open. So yeah, I wear leg braces, they're gonna know. And the funny part about my first show back in braces with a diagnosis was it was the same show that I had done pre-diagnosis. So I was doing Celtic Fire in 2019 when 2 groups of people accused me of being an amputee. And then I did the show again in 2020, pre-COVID, and I came into the rehearsal space and I had all of my friends there. It was essentially the exact same group of people except like 4. And I had leg braces on, and they were like, that makes sense. And I was like, doesn't it? It's crazy. I talk about it, it just becomes so much more clear that that was the perfect environment to have the initial run in braces with the diagnosis, because I had all these people that knew me already. They knew the work I did. They now got to see me healthy. You know, when you're not wearing braces, like your ankles hurt and your knees hurt and your hips hurt and your lower back gets tight and your upper back gets tight. And apparently you look like you have at least one leg gone. So for them to now see me walking like a normal person, in less pain, a bit quicker, it just made it so much easier because I mean, I like to think that they thought I could do the show anyway. But now at that point, they're like, oh, he can do the show. Sweet.
Hmm.
Guy's great. I think if I had to navigate that by myself, like sitting at home, going to auditions, and just like sneaking up to my director or casting agent for that day and being like, hey, so I have a thing. I can't dance for you. That would probably have been a bit more difficult for me to see the end of the road for that one. But I think the best case scenario was going back to the same show with the same group of people and all of them being like, that's just Joey, but healthy.
Right. And being able to see that contrast and to
Yeah.
you in a better place. I think that speaks a lot because I think especially for men, it's difficult to embrace, wearing leg braces because there is this stigma around, especially young men that are successful and in the prime of their life that they have to be strong. And
Oh yeah.
the minute that there's this visible marker of disability, they become more weak in the eyes of society and among other people. So, can you talk a little bit about that and maybe what that internal, like obviously the external struggle of disclosing it to, people around
Yeah.
you, but what was that internal struggle like as well as far as your identity and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time, I would. So before braces, right? When you're in college, specifically for one in the entertainment field, we all have to be pretty. Like we just have to be because that's who gets cast. Pretty people get cast, or people who just like have a beard, they get cast. And as much as it's portrayed in media that, oh yeah, not just like straight white people in life, right? They're also people of color, people with disabilities, differently abled people in the world. All of those people in media are also very pretty people. And so, when I'm in college, I'm like wearing skinny jeans because, oh, I was cool. And I'd have like a button down shirt with a vest on. And I was like, I'm the bad boy. And then I got leg braces and I was like, well, those two things don't add up. Can't wear skinny jeans with leg braces because, man, number one, getting your pants on is going to suck. And
Yeah.
number two, the casting director is going to see your braces through your pants. They're not going to want to cast you. So I think I looked at either my mom or my girlfriend and I was like, I need to start wearing boot cut pants. I want no one to know the second I walk in the room that I have something wrong with me. So I need pants that are wide enough at the bottom that I can hide my braces. And man, is that a really poopy way to have to go through life and find a job. Like that sucks. It is so unfair. And again, granted, I did it to myself by going into this field where, again, the pretty people get cast. The dudes with muscles get cast. The dudes with beards and no leg braces get cast. And so, and again, like when I first got the diagnosis, and this is even before I knew I had to wear braces, my neurologist said, you might need a leg brace for your left leg or for your right leg. You might need a leg brace for your right leg. You won't need them for both. You might need them for your right. I'm going to send you over to the Hanger Clinic. They'll do an eval. So I go, and my clinician is great. Her name's Kristen. She looked at me and immediately went, yeah, you need 2 leg braces. And I was like, what? That's not what was discussed. And she said, I know what I'm talking about. You're getting braces. And I was like, all right, I trust you. I'm sorry. I went back to my my neurologist, and I was like, she's putting me in leg braces, and he went, well, what are you gonna do? And I was like, look here, dude, you said maybe one. You didn't say guaranteed two.
Mm.
And then I had to have was like, I need to talk to you now. My career means that I need to be very active. What do you think this means for me in terms of my profession? And he goes, you should be fine. And I was like, let me rephrase. If a football player came to you right now with this, what would you tell him? And he was like, he needs to find a new job. And I was like, I am dancing, literally dancing 4 times a day, maybe 6. Like, that was 7, 6. I am as active as anybody in a sport. And if you're going to tell somebody who plays sports professionally to find a new job, that doesn't bode well for me. And he was like, no, you'll be fine. And I was like, all right, man. And then I broke 5 leg braces in 1 year. I'm within like a 4-month span. Like I just broke every brace that got put on my body. Because it's a very active profession when you're dancing up to 6 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through all that, I was not in a good headspace. Just was not in a good place. Just mad because I went from feeling like I needed to hide the fact that I had something wrong with me to being like, okay, I'm going to make it work, to, okay, this just doesn't work because it's now week 6 and I'm back at Hanger Clinic for my 4th brace because I just broke the new one I got 2 days ago yesterday. What am I supposed to do? So initially it sucked. It was hard. I really struggled with whether or not I should continue to perform, if I needed to find a different job in production or like teaching theater or teaching music, because it would mean I wasn't at risk of destroying thousands of dollars in carbon fiber every year.
Mm.
But then I got these new braces and they've been great.
Okay. Do you mind sharing what kind of braces you have?
Sure. The name, couldn't tell you.
Maybe somebody can identify them and write it in the chat if you.
This is what it looks like.
Looks like the noodle, maybe. Is anybody?
So this is specific design. So I brought up football players. I went to my clinician back in Cleveland, and she looked at me. She goes, "This isn't working." But she was probably more determined than I was to figure out how to get braces that worked for my job.
Mm.
And so she reached out to a few people, and she called me back and she goes, "So I know a clinician who is the clinician for a football player for the Washington football team who has drop foot from a car accident. I think it was a car accident. So they developed this brace for him so that he can wear it in game. And if he's not breaking them during a game, you'll be fine doing a 20-minute show."
There you go.
I said, okay, whatever you say, we'll give it a shot. And I am currently wearing one. I need to get this one trimmed down, but I've had the one on my right leg now for 3 or 4 months. I did an entire season in it and it didn't break. There isn't even a sign of crack. It has held up beautifully.
We'll have to get information and share it when we post the recording of this. And
yeah, absolutely. I will double check with her and get the name of it. But
yeah, I mean, it's
amazing.
It's very common with certain types of carbon fiber bracing that they crack with the wear. So depending on, like you said, how active you are on a day-to-day basis is the frequency
Yeah.
at which they're going to be breaking. So you have your braces now. Obviously, you're learning to accept them, and they're obviously enhancing your performance and your lifestyle. What do you, now that you're kind of in a better place, do you see yourself staying as an actor and just kind of being at the forefront of, breaking barriers? Because there are, like I think we had mentioned on my first call with you, breakthrough actors and actresses like Ali Stroker, taking to the stage and winning Tony Awards and
Yeah.
locking in Netflix series, and for those of you who don't know, Ali Stroker is a wheelchair user. I think it was 2019 where she won an Emmy for being in Oklahoma on Broadway. So I think, there's never been a better time than now for disability inclusion and representation, and that, especially in the entertainment world, that it's not a death sentence anymore like it
Yeah.
used to be to someone's career, and that there's always room for, groundbreaking advocates like yourself to kind of share their story and to make those changes on stage where needed, and just to, push through.
Yeah. I don't plan on stopping performing anytime soon. Now that I know what works for me, I mean, that was the hardest part, as I'm sure everybody has experienced, but whether it be with CMT or literally any other aspect of their life, trial and error is the hardest part of any journey, right?
Mhm.
And so again, like breaking upwards of 6 braces in 3 months was infuriating. But it led me to having amazing braces that I can wear in a show, and I don't anticipate doing a show that requires nearly as much movement as Celtic Fire did. But I now know what works for me. So it would be a disservice to myself having gone through all of that and now being like, cool, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go work at Target. It'll be great. Nothing against anybody who works at Target. It's just not for me right now.
Mhm.
That's all.
I'm sure you'd be
Um,
great to have on the floor though.
you know, I actually did very off topic, but survival jobs for actors, they're important.
There you go.
And I worked for a company called Shipped, which was a delivery service exclusively through Target. So I would go, essentially, that was like personal shopping for people at Target. It was great. I actually loved that job. So that was just a little fun thing. If you ever want a little side gig, Shipped, SHIPT, not a sponsor, but saved my life.
Yeah.
They were great. But yeah, it would just be such a disservice to myself having gone through everything I went through, specifically in 2021, and then be like, cool, I'm actually achieving moderate success in my field. I'm gonna go take a nap and call it a day. I know that eventually I want to teach. I've always wanted to teach. When I was in high school, I was thinking about being a history teacher, but I'd rather teach like music or theater or both. And so eventually, when I decide that I'm done and I should give my body a break, I want to teach musical theater in some capacity. But that's not now.
Right.
And you are right in that now is the time to have differently abled people going out and auditioning and getting roles and being seen, because everybody wants that now.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much the culture has shifted. I mean, you can see it. Literally turn on your television.
Mhm.
You're seeing so many different groups of people, different body types, colors, sexual orientations, abilities, both physical and mental. They're all being represented right now. And it's so cool literally being able to watch it, just flip a channel and be like, that's a rerun. They're all straight white people. And then you go to a next one and that's a new episode. And there's people in wheelchairs, people with autism or Down syndrome, Black people, Latinx people, everybody's there. And it's so cool. Straight, bisexual, LGBTQ plus, everybody's represented now. Or they're better represented. They're not nearly where they should be yet. So much further to go in terms of representation, but we're walking down that road and it's great. So I foresee a lot of opportunity coming down the road, which is awesome. It's so cool to be able to be a part of that in a way that I never thought I would be.
And even talent agencies like Gamut Management, which I'm part of, that they only represent people with disabilities. C Talent, Whaler also represents people of all different talents, of all different disabilities, because like you said, brands, companies, the entertainment industry are realizing that they've been leaving out the largest minority group in the world, which is people with disabilities. It's 1.3 billion people worldwide, apparently. So if you look at that compared to Latinx, that's the same or maybe a little bit more. I think 25% in the US are Latinx. So they're realizing they're leaving out a quarter of the population, and they're missing out on, on clientele, customer, audience. So there is an increasing demand for people of all different disabilities. And like you said, just sharing your story and walking into that audition with your leg braces authentically, and saying, I can do this role, maybe look a little different. And if you're open-minded to making some accommodations and some changes, and the audience gets to see that, and now you have people coming up to you from stage, and they're not questioning whether you have a amputated limb, but they're saying, oh, I like, your leg braces, and tell me more about that. Or, I know somebody that wears leg braces or has CMT, and now you have a conversation starter and you're connecting with people, and it's empowering.
Yeah. I mean, it truly is amazing. I mean, even going back to the show that I was in, and seeing these, I'd see kids who are wearing leg braces, and I don't know if it's because I wear them now or because more people are wearing them now that I'm noticing more AFOs on more people, and it's not weird. And there are kids who come see the show and they'll be wearing AFOs or in a wheelchair and be like, that's so cool, I want to do it. And I'm like, yeah. And I just pull up my pant leg. I'm like, do it. It's great. It's just so cool that people now feel more able to do something like this.
Yeah.
In a way that I know I doubt I would have. And even, again, when I first got my diagnosis, I didn't think I'd be able to finish this part of my life in the way that I'm doing it.
Part because you didn't grow up seeing those role models, right? But now that the next generations will be, they won't have that doubt if they're diagnosed at some point in their life, or they do have to wear leg braces. Okay, so and so on this show wears them, or this actor or actress on Broadway is in a wheelchair, so I don't have to derail my career just because my body is different. It works
exactly.
And even platforms, even if you're looking for a career outside of entertainment, there's platforms that we've shared recently, like inclusively.com, which is an all-inclusive platform that matches employers with people with disabilities. And it's wonderful in the fact that you can literally check off the accommodations that you require. And all of the employees have already agreed to them. And so there's like no awkward interaction, and
Yeah.
it's not like there's not that like shame that you have to hide something. Like, this is who I am, this is what I'm capable of, this is my value,
Yep.
this is what I need to succeed. And it's a win-win because, you know, we always say that people with disabilities are the ultimate life hackers, right? Just
Yeah.
like you had to go through all of those braces to kind of find the right one. It's because of that perseverance. A lot of people would have just stopped at pair 2 or 3 and been like, all right, I guess I'm not wearing braces, I'm just gonna
Yep.
continue to struggle. But yeah, because we're forced to you know, to make changes on the spot, and be creative and hack solutions in a world that wasn't built for us. You
Yeah.
know, that's the muscle that we're forced to strengthen, and it's something valuable that we can bring to our employers and careers. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. But yeah, maybe we could open it up to questions now.
Yeah.
Or if somebody would like to share something that maybe resonated with you and in Joey's story, yeah, feel free to kind of raise your hands and unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and let us know if you have any questions. Like I said, this is just a casual conversation. We wanted to open this up as a Zoom meeting. But in the meantime, we'll wait for anybody to unmute themselves. Where can people see you perform, and where can they learn more about you?
Sure. So that was my reel at the beginning of it. I think we can share the link if you want to see some of that. Awesome. I'll probably be re-editing and adding new material to it within the week, so that'd be great. My website is joeytnicoletti.com. Yeah, I had links to my reel, my resume, and my headshot. It's not updated with news, so I will update that, and that'll be great. I just got done performing at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg a little over a month ago. I'll be performing at Turning Stone Casino in Verona, New York, starting November 17th.
Very
I will
cool.
be in an a cappella quartet doing Christmas tunes around the casino, so that'll be really fun. And I think right now that's all I have to share at the moment.
No, I think that's all great, and we definitely encourage everyone to check out the website and follow you on social media.
Yep, and all of my social media handles are at Joey TNIC.
All right, I'll put that in there as well. So it's at Joey TNIC.
Yep, that's it.
So that's Instagram and TikTok.
Instagram and TikTok.
Okay, great. So it doesn't seem like we have any questions here.
Yeah, hello. I have
yeah,
a question.
please.
Hi, I'm phoning. We're from.
Okay,
I'm
there
from.
we go. Well,
I'm from
I
Vermont.
just wanted to, I just wondered, I'm a little older than you, but my family didn't talk about it. And so you know, it was years, you know, I was older than you when we even, you know, talked about what CMT, you know, really was. And because I think
Yeah,
they
for
didn't
sure.
know that it's just a gene. I don't know what they thought it was,
Mhm.
but so did your family already, I mean, you knew what your dad and grandpa had?
Yeah. Granted, I don't think that when they knew what it was, because I mean, my grandfather, like I said, he was in his 70s back in the early 2000s. And my dad and my aunt are 50. How old are my dad and my aunt? 55 and 58, I think. And so if you, I mean, anything in this field, specifically like neuropathies that are rare, right? Because CMT is pretty rare, and there are enough strands that we know about now to be like, oh, so you have like 4A or XY. Like, we don't know what any of this is. back in the early 2000s, it was, I have Charcot-Marie-Tooth. Yes. And that is what I have. I think my dad and my aunt are in some medical journal somewhere, just because they were born at a time when they were trying to make advances in terms of research and how it affects people differently. My dad now wears a leg brace. He got his before I got mine. But when he was born, he had severe scoliosis. I think his spine was in the shape of a question mark. So he has a lovely zipper down his back. They put metal rods in to straighten his spine. They had to do a bone graft on his hip to lengthen his Achilles. And I think my aunt also, I mean, it was just her feet that she had a lot of surgery on, as far as I know. But again, it was just like, yeah, I have CMT. And they would try and spell it, because it's really fun to try and spell Charcot-Marie-Tooth if you don't know how to spell it. And then they would just be like, yeah, it's named after some French guy. And that's as much as anybody knew when we would discuss it. But then when I got my diagnosis, the conversation definitely picked up. Especially, again, because you now know, you can figure out what strand you have, which is great, because like each strand affects people differently, right? So I don't have nearly the same symptoms, or relatively the same symptoms, as somebody with CMT type 4A. And it also hit me way later in life than, like my dad and my aunt, who literally came out messed up. Like that was how they were. And, it was the 60s when they were born. So they were like, ooh, that baby don't look right. Let's figure that out. And here I am, 22, when I got my diagnosis. And they were like, so you have CMT type 4A, or you have CMT type 1B. We're going to do all of these tests and you're going to be fine. So, and a lot of it too is like, I needed to have the conversations. I mean, I think my grandfather didn't ever want to talk about it, because he doesn't want to say, yes, I'm disabled. Granted, initially nobody wants to say that, right? There's always that denial period where you're like, I'm not disabled. I don't need leg braces. I'm gonna go run a flipping marathon and you can't stop me. The ground might when I fall, but you can't. And so we never talked about it. Like I said, we would help him put his shoes on, and they were Velcro New Balance with plastic AFOs. I remember it vividly, because that's just what it was. He wore white Velcro New Balance with a plastic AFO, and cool. But then I needed to talk. I needed to be like, all right, Dad, so this is what this means for us.
Right.
And I mean, even talking with Estella about like the toxic drug list, I didn't know that there were drugs that messed me up. I read on there that Prilosec had messed me up if I didn't take it in moderation. Flipping Prilosec.
Mm-hmm.
How am I supposed to know that I can't take that? With the toxic drug list. Look at it. It is awesome that there's all this information out now.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, those resources, they are very important. So I pasted in here the CMT Thrive Guide, and those have our most important resources. One of them is the neurotoxic drug list, which you can just literally click on it and you'll get the list up there on your computer, save it to your phone, screenshot it, share it with your doctor, with your pharmacist. And then also, speaking of genetic testing, CMT has recently launched the CMT Genie, and we're seeing dozens and dozens of CMT families get a final diagnosis. It can be really overwhelming and cost prohibitive, but we have really put together an incredible program. So you could click on the CMT Genie page on the Thrive Guide, or that previous link that I put in there, and then just set up a call with H&F team, myself or Courtney and Allison, and we will literally have a half-hour session with you. We will figure out the best approach for genetic testing. Most people, many people qualify for the sponsored testing, which is free. And if not, we will, provide the additional resources and pricing, connect you with a virtual genetic counselor. They'll send a test kit to your house. You don't have to leave. You don't need a doctor's prescription. You don't have to wait 6 months for an appointment with your neurologist. It's within a matter of weeks. So we are really excited about that program. So thankfully, Joey has, volunteered his time and just his advocacy to helping us spread the message about these resources, and just really connecting it with just your story and so many other people's, because it's not just about, the CMT research, which is what we're striving for every day, but these real life stories and struggles and emotional challenges and career challenges, and how do we navigate that? How can we learn from each other? I think another question here from Jim, was it?
Yeah, Jim, I'm phoning from Canada.
Hi, Jim.
On
Hi,
the
Jim.
line from Canada. Hi. I was just curious, how are you noticing your balance? Do you find it still good, or
No,
no?
no.
That's one of the biggest things that I have issue with. Yeah. I got
Yeah.
1B. I have 1B as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
win.
Well, yeah.
Team 1B.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed when I was 46, so 15 years ago or so.
Yeah. And I mean,
I'm sure I showed signs earlier.
me too. That was the thing. So I know, again, in college, I went to college when in 2014. I didn't get my diagnosis until essentially the beginning of 2020. So at least 6 years of people being like, "You walk weird, dude." I'm like, yeah, I know, sorry. We did an acting exercise, and this one was funny too. We did an acting exercise, and it was a movement exercise where you would walk and have your center be a different part of your body. So like people walk with their head being the point of motion, right? So they'll just like lean forward. People walk with their chest out, having their chest as the center. People would walk, they walk with their pelvis out and their hips are thrust forward. That's their center. And so we would experiment, and they were like, our professor said, walk with your left shoulder being the focal point. So you would walk how you think somebody would walk if their left shoulder was what was out. And then she said, right knee. And everybody in my class looked at me and they said, "Is this what it's like to be you every day?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm walking exactly the same." Ha! Ha! I mean, like, obviously showing signs well before I got my diagnosis. And yeah, balance sucks. If I'm not moving, my body is making me tip one way or the other. I've noticed recently that I'll be like kind of rocking back and forth on my feet a bit more than I ought to, or think that I ought to, just because, again, I feel like I'm going to tip if I'm completely stationary. Yeah, it's a weird one. Definitely a weird one.
Moonwalk.
Yeah,
they call
exactly.
it the moonwalk, where you're going backwards all the time.
Yeah, sometimes I just feel like a baby, just like locked knees, and I can't do anything except try and stand.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice because I feel like a very open person. And I know that there are so many people who, like me, have this thing. And I'm a very unique case in that I'm very active in like performing and being on stage and doing all that. And that's not going to be everybody. That's for sure, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that I got the opportunity. Thank you, Estella, again for
Yeah.
Thank you.
letting me come on here.
Yeah, well, and also in a way, staying as active as possible is actually great therapy, and it's the reason why we launched our program Movement is Medicine, because we really feel like it. I personally feel a difference if I'm, we just drove from Florida yesterday, and I'm like really wobbly today because I've been
Yeah.
sitting in the car for 2 days. So, I feel that on a daily basis, if I'm not moving, if I'm not standing up, if I'm not getting the blood circulating, but the fact that you're almost like forced to be on your feet, to be moving, can also definitely work in your favor. Of course, there's like, that happy medium. You don't want to injure yourself or anyone else, of course. You don't want to overdo it, because then you're at fatigue and all that injuries and aches and pains afterwards. But I think that's part of it, finding your happy medium, in any capacity that you can stay moving. In that
Yeah.
in that Thrive guide that I shared, there's also the page for Movement is Medicine. So we offer free virtual classes. The majority of them are taught by people with CMT. That's seated yoga, cardio, hips, core, all of those things that really target things like balance, gym, and and Bernadette's on here. She teaches, or she's taught a bunch of aquatic pool therapy classes from her own personal TheraPool. So if you live in a warmer climate, if you have access to a pool, that's a great way to keep moving without the stress of gravity. And it's just, everybody has to kind of find their own flow, and just adapt as much as we can.
Yeah, for sure.
So with closing, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. And if you had one piece of advice to share with, CMT youth who, people younger maybe that are considering certain type of career, and maybe are kind of veering away from something that they really want to do because of CMT, do you have any words of advice to share?
Don't. Honestly, that's the best thing I have is I don't care what is wrong with you, physically, mentally, emotionally. Try, because you'll find out pretty quick that you can make it work. And the only way to figure that out is to try. And you'll get frustrated, and you'll get sad, and you'll get angry. And that's okay. It's all part of the process. Because eventually you'll figure out what works, and it'll be great. And you'll know you've made the right decision. Absolutely.
I think that's perfect. And if I had to share something as well from, from my career as well, would be not to be scared to share it with people, and to ask for help, and not to be ashamed to ask for help, and to know your value, and to be confident about what you can bring to the table, and all of the gifts that are on the other side of CMT, because it does come with its own gifts and skills that are just intrinsic with living with a disability, and navigating that every day. So thank you everyone for joining. We hope you check out the website and the links below. We're getting some great comments. Proud of you, Joey. Thank you in the comment box. And if you'd like to, just follow Joey on social media, and H&F will be collaborating with him on some upcoming videos, which we're excited about. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining us today.
Thanks very much. Thanks,
Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
One beat. Thank you. Thanks so much, Joey. We'll talk soon.
Of course. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Stella.
Thank you, guys.